Let's move on now to the other election that's taking place on Thursday for the European Parliament. Despite the fierce rows that Europe evokes, it's not a campaign that seems to have caught the public imagination. But could that be because the East Midlands is just so big, the parties find it hard to connect with voters? Our political editor, John Hess, has been on an East Midlands road trip.
This is a car journey with a difference. I'm setting off to find out how big the East Midlands Euro constituency actually is and whether that's a factor for the low voter interest. First stop, Nottingham University, and an expert on how the political wind is blowing.
Generally, I think the European Union and the Europe project has failed to really make the case to voters, particularly in Britain, who have long been more Eurosceptic, as to why these elections really matter. Voters do struggle to name their members of the European Parliament. They do struggle to know exactly how this system of proportional representation works, because in Britain we have a different system.
So it's back on the road. Destination north.
This is the town of Glossop, and just over the hill, a few miles away, is Manchester city centre. Yet the people here, despite the proximity to Greater Manchester, will be voting for their 5 East Midland MEPs, and that's because we're on the very northwestern edge of Derbyshire.
The East Midlands Euro constituency covers 5 counties and includes 3.2 million voters. That's a lot of votes to count.
Probably 15,000 staff. 3,000 polling stations, bringing all that together, coordinating it and coming to some sensible result that everyone has confidence in. It's quite an operation.
From Derbyshire's High Peak, I'm heading east to the Fens.
I've now arrived in Boston in Lincolnshire, and it's taken me a 2.5-hour hard drive to get here, and it's made me realise how difficult it is for the parties and their candidates in this election to get around such a vast regional constituency. And have you had all the leaflets in the parties?
We've had some. I think we've had 2 so far, haven't we? That's about it. But we don't get a lot of canvassing down our side.
I think if we'd have had more leaflets, it would have been easier for me to get the information and to decide.
Have you had all the leaflets?
No, I've only had 1 so far.
Oh, who's that from?
UKIP.
From UKIP.
And he's not getting my vote.
He's not.
The voters often use European elections as a way of kicking the incumbent government in the mouth. It's often seen as a form of elections that encourage a protest vote, largely because voters don't treat them as important as general elections.
Back on the road, and I've already clocked up 250 miles.
And this is where our journey across the Euro constituency of the East Midlands ends at the Kettering Conference Centre in Northamptonshire.
The count will be held inside the centre's sports hall 3 days after we've voted. So why the delay?
No votes can be counted in any election, whilst ever anyone could still be voting. So you can't get involved in announcing results while the voting still goes on. And the voting will still be going on in Italy up to 10 o'clock UK time.
And by next Sunday evening, after the rest of Europe has voted, we'll find out the 5 MEPs who'll represent us in the European Parliament.
We hopefully will. And John clocked up 320 miles on that road trip, which was quite a good mileage. Isn't campaigning in this election mission impossible for local candidates, really, Edward?
For the European constituency,
Yes,
it's a vast geographical area. There are, 3.5 million people in it, I think John said. It's not easy. I personally would prefer to go back to the one member, one constituency system that we used to have 20 years ago, but that seems to have gone. I also would like to get rid of the PR system, but again, I'm afraid the European rules suggest the other way. But it's a vast area from just outside.
So is it too big then?
Yes, it is too big in my view, and
I
think
it's a challenge. It's this is the 3rd Euro election that I've been the agent for the Liberal Democrats, and it's 1.8 million houses, and trying to get a campaign across that area
you can't
is just
possibly get round
no. It's very tricky, and we just have to do what we can. We get the advantage in this election of a Royal Mail election address, which certainly the major parties use, and make sure that we get our message out, but it really is difficult.
It is big, Mary, but what you need is to get to voters a message, and they need to get one back to you. The one thing which has been coming over to us is we cannot control our borders and immigration, and whenever I go out campaigning through this massive constituency, which I agree is too big, those messages actually come over and politicians ignore them at their peril.
Well, I guess the people who are missing out here really are the voters, though, because if they don't get to see their European candidates, how can they possibly know who they're voting for and what they stand for, Chris?
Well, there's some agreement, I have to say, with Edward in relation to the size of the constituency and unhappiness with proportional representation, and maybe going back to the sort of single member constituency. I think that would be something that people could maybe understand a bit more easily.
Is the fact of the matter, though, that you're saving all your pennies for next year and you don't want to blow the budget on these elections?
Well, I mean, I have to say the Labour candidates, I can't speak for the others, have certainly been pretty visible. They've got round a lot of areas in Derby. People have been out, and they've got the advantage in Derby as well, of course, of having the local elections, and I think there are some other areas in the region where they have local elections as well. So that helps to, I think, garner the troops, as it were, and get local activists out, getting the message to the local electorate. But it's definitely a major challenge to. I mean, it's a big challenge anyway. Actually, even in the old days where we had a constituency in our area, for example, the whole of Derbyshire and part of Nottinghamshire, that was also a major challenge.
And you have to know who you're targeting as well. Lib Dems are targeting the Polish vote.
Well, we're targeting every vote, but there's clearly a section of the community that are pro-European. One of our messages is about jobs and the future of jobs by being in Europe. We've also got a very good message about the record of our MEP, who is the longest serving and most experienced MEP in the whole of Europe. Out of all 700 MEPs, Bill Newton-Dunn is the most experienced. He's also got the best voting record of any of the MEPs in the region, and we're going out and taking that message out positively to as many people as we possibly can.
David?
As I say, it is a huge challenge to get to these people. It's all about messages, and actually our candidates have been getting all the way over this massive constituency. They are being told immigration is the #1 issue. And we really do need to tackle our borders. Our borders have been left porous by the coalition government. This is one thing which we have really got to
okay. Well, we've heard from
David's a one-trick pony. They can only talk about immigration. He can't talk about the positive aspects, and obviously very, very frightened, I think, to talk about the benefits.
If you'd asked him the same question a year ago, he would have said how marvellous the coalition was.
Well, indeed.
I never said that, Edward, as you well know.
Well, you tell me an awful lot of things that I would love to.
Well, let's. We've heard from all of you in the studio at the moment.